The fact is, there's not the fear put into them because this game is a lot about fear. You either do the job or you go home and go sell hamburgers at McDonald's.
Caleb could throw for 250, 300 yards. If Bajent's in there, he's throwing for 500.
What happened to Daniken?
I finally got.
What have you done with him?
I finally got it.
Now, what I will say,
I was on it right away.
What have you done with him?
Took me a little while.
It's Gabriel Talks Football with Greg, Aldo. Today's guest is Rick Smith.
Welcome, everyone, to GTF, Gabriel Talks Football. My name is Aldo Gandia, and the handsome gentleman wearing attire from our super barfly fan, Brandon Lawson, is Greg Gabriel. I'm also wearing a Brandon Lawson.
The other one.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brandon. That was
Thank
very
you, Brandon,
nice for donating these.
Yes. Maybe he's got something for our guest today. What do you think?
Maybe.
Why don't you introduce our guest, Greg?
Yeah, we've got Ben Johnson's agent, Rick Smith, who's local from Highland Park. Also has quite a few other coaches in his group. And being that it's coach hiring time, it's a good time to have Rick on. Morning, Rick.
Hey guys, how are you? Great to be back.
Great to be here. Great to have you back. I was saying to Rick, Greg, before the show started that it looked like he might be down in like out west. Or
yeah, I don't see snow in the background there.
No, there's plenty, boys. Plenty. Freezing and no, I'm home.
Well, thank you again for being here. Greg, why don't you and Rick get into it, and I'll pop in about 15 minutes with some questions, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, my friend.
So, Rick, we're a year after Ben Johnson got hired. What was your take of the whole first year as a head coach?
It's so funny. I think it exceeded expectations.
Absolutely.
Exponentially. I mean, it really was incredible. It's like when you're walking into the situation he walked into, you're just hoping by the end of the year that the fans have a glimmer of hope, that they see a future, that the runway is clear, that, we can build upon what you did in the previous year. And he exceeded that, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, Greg, we've been around a long time and we've seen a lot of coaches, and some guys sort of get it, some don't, but I really do believe that being a head coach is in his DNA. I mean, I think he was literally born to be a head coach. I couldn't be more impressed.
I can't disagree. I mean, I went into the season thinking it's a great season if they get 9 wins. Far exceeded that, win the division, have 2 home playoff games, win one of them. And that's just the beginning. I can see it only getting better. At least I hope it only gets better.
Yeah, I mean, it gets tougher, as you know. I mean, now with the way they schedule, the Bears had a last place schedule this year. Now they'll have a first place schedule next year. And, it gets harder. And to stay on top gets a lot harder. But what I've been most impressed with, if you don't mind, is that, there's no way, shape, or form is he satisfied. I mean, he's just beginning, and that's where his head's at. He's not like, oh, maybe we need to reevaluate this. Maybe we're better than we thought we were. That's not his mindset at all. It's we're going to be aggressive and we're going to keep building. And, this was the first year of this rebuild, and now let's go into year 2 of the rebuild, and then year 3 of the rebuild. I mean, he just doesn't get satisfied, and his press conference absolutely said the same thing. It's like, no, we're not rebuilding off of next year. Unfortunately, we start from scratch, and that's true. And I've never really. Have you heard a coach really say that right away?
No, it's. I just love what he says in front of people, in front of the media, to the fans, whatever, because he's so transparent. And the only guy I could compare him to, who I worked with, and totally different personalities, but what comes out was pretty much the same, is Parcells.
Yeah.
And I was with Parcells for seven and a half years, and very not mannerisms in the way they talk aren't close. I think Bill's a lot more sarcastic, but just the transparency, the way he handles players, the respect that the players have for him. To me, that was the best part, was watching the players buy in, because you could tell they totally bought in.
But I don't know if you noticed, and I'm sure you did, is that what he's able to do is, he talks to the players one way, and he knows how to tap into their emotions, and then he talks to the media a different way, which is transparent and giving them what they need. And then the fans with, that whole take the shirt off thing in the locker room was directed straight at the fans. Now, I'm going to bring you involved in this whole thing. And what he does internally in the building, I mean, everybody who works there, whether they have to do with football operations or not, are fully bought in. And that's in your DNA. Like, you can't teach that. And that's what impressed. For a first-year head coach, boy, I haven't seen it quite like this. And I'm just taking a back seat now and just actually learning from a 39-year-old guy. Yeah. And it's great.
And you've been doing this a long time.
Long time. So it's wonderful. I mean, it's just absolutely fun.
The other thing too that is really, amazing is the right word, but for a rookie coach, the staff he put together was just superlative.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, he just has. He's got it. He's got that it factor, and yeah, it's like, I mean, look what's happening up in the Jets, for instance. They've cleared out like 9 coaches. I mean, you usually don't get your best staff year one because you don't have a lot of time to put it together. You're hired, and then all of a sudden you got to put a staff together, and you're only able to bring on guys that are basically out of work, other than your coordinators, and it's hard. And then your second staff is usually kind of when things settle in. But if you've seen, like, he hasn't replaced anybody. I've never seen that either. I mean, incredible.
Well, he's got to replace Bieniemy because he took the OC job. But in itself, the fact that some of his guys are getting interviewed, shows you that he's hired the right people.
No question. Yeah. No, and they want to be here. These coaches want to. It's a master class. For those assistant coaches working under him, it's really a master class in modern football and modern offense for sure. And I think Dennis did a great job too. So, and Dennis Allen over on the defensive side. So it's really a master class for those guys. I mean, if you sit back and take a deep breath and go old school like we did, Greg, and not be in a hurry for your next job, you know what I mean? You can learn so much and from just being around these guys, and make yourself a better coach by hanging around a bit.
No question. Let's shift gears a little bit, because right now we're in the middle of the new coaching cycle for the season. And my personal view is it wasn't a good year to fire a coach. That the pool, and you correct me if I'm wrong or if you think different, I thought the pool this year of prospective head coaches wasn't close to last year.
I agree. I agree. There's always a couple bullets in the crew. Last year probably Mike Vrabel and Ben probably were the bullets, and then obviously Liam Cohn did a heck of a job. But this year there's a lot of what ifs, and a lot of hope. And I agree. Right. I agreed, and I was flabbergasted that there was this many openings, based on, but I don't think teams anymore are thinking about that. I really don't. I think we're in a new world, you know. I mean, there's only a couple family teams left. You're talking about, you know, very, very wealthy men, you know, multi-billionaires. And if you let go of your coach and it costs you 30, 40, 50 million, and you know, that's not a big deal. I hate to say it, but in the
It is for me.
yeah, heck yeah. But it's just they're more interested in winning that trophy than they are about eating dead money, and so the patience is there's no, you know, there's very little patience left. And if you don't win and sustain winning, so you can win for a year or two and then have a couple bad years and you'll find yourself out of a job. So it's a perilous profession for sure, being a head coach. Obviously the money has risen dramatically, and it is, you know, so you do get some security when you sign that first contract, since they are fully guaranteed contracts. So, you know, there's a trade-off, I guess, but man, I couldn't agree with you more. I'd be scared if I was an owner.
The one job that really shocked me, and I'm from Buffalo, and so I follow
Yeah.
that team. I can't believe Sean McDermott got fired.
I don't disagree. I don't know what you want him to do.
It's a guy takes him to the playoffs like 7 years in a row, wins 6 division titles. How does that guy get fired?
I hear you. I don't know. And you know, the days of Mike Tomlin having what 18, 19 years at the
Right.
same place, and John Harbaugh having a tremendous amount of time. You know, I think that's going to be the outliers for sure. I don't think you're going to see that kind of longevity anymore with any team. It's just the nature of the beast right now. I mean, it's systemic. I mean, look at colleges are no different. You know, there's always a very wealthy booster ready to fund a replacement of a coach, and you know, so the amount of wealth in this country surrounding college and professional athletics has gotten to the point where they're not afraid to have dead money, where the old family companies were scared to death of it.
Yeah, no question. And, you know, getting back to the McDermott thing, I've always thought that, okay, if you're going to get rid of a coach, you better have a plan of who that next guy is going to be. And I don't think, just looking at how that came down in Buffalo a week ago, I don't think they had a clue.
I don't think any of these coaches, organizations had a plan. There was no plan B. Like, I literally don't think that's part of the discussion anymore. I don't think they're sitting around saying, okay, we've got this guy. All right, then here's the pool of candidates. So maybe we don't let our coach go because we don't love the candidates for whatever. But I don't think that's even discussed anymore. I literally don't. I think these owners come in and they've seen enough, and they don't want to run anymore with the guy they've got. And they're just saying, okay, you know, GM, go find us one. And there's no question in my mind that's what's going on.
They're putting the GM on the spot, and if he doesn't make the right hire, and chances of him making the right hire are less than 50-50.
But what about the fact that we have 10 coaches relieved of their duties and 2 general managers? You know, think about that. I mean,
Right.
That's to me also incredibly interesting, because, you know, with some teams, you know, a bad roster isn't going to get overcome by a great coach. You still need players. I don't care how good of a coach you are, you know, you still need players. And it's mind-boggling to me that with some of the rosters out there, that the GM is immune from responsibility while the coach takes it all. You know, that also is mind-boggling to me. But
No, hey, I agree with you, because the coach is at the mercy of the GM, because the GM's the guy who gets them the players.
Yeah, 100%. And it's, you know, it's hard. I mean, I will tell you, like, trying to coach a roster that can't compete division-wise, conference-wise, etc., is really, really hard. Really, really, really hard. And coaches are taking all the brunt of it, and I don't know why. But hey, you play the hand that's dealt to you, man. None of us can control of any of this. So
No, that
you know,
you're absolutely right. Now, I know you got one guy who's kind of a hot name, and I don't know if you want to say much.
sure.
But Kubiak from Seattle
Yeah.
is one of your clients. Do you think he lands a job this year, being that he's in the Super Bowl, so it's 2 weeks before he can even be hired?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this will bore your listeners, but the rules are really, really difficult for coaches that are
No
in the
kidding.
Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
You know, for his personal situation, he had the first week, the wild card week before the wild card games, to be able to Zoom with a team to allow them basically a second interview before the Super Bowl. And Pittsburgh, for instance, Pittsburgh and Buffalo relieved their coaches after that game.
Right.
So he has no ability to talk to those two teams. Obviously, Pittsburgh's hired already, but he had no ability to talk to those two teams until after the Super Bowl, which is in 2 weeks. Arizona and Las Vegas, who are the other two teams looking for coaches, they were able to Zoom with him. So if they're interested in a second interview, and I'll figure that out this week, then he can talk to them sometime this week for a second interview, but he can't be hired until after the game. So it's really unfair. I don't know a better system, but that's the system.
Can he? You can with two clubs. He can do a second interview.
Yeah.
Can they be in person, or do they have to be Zoom again? Because
No,
he's still
they're
working.
allowed to be in person.
So they got to go to him. So they got to go up to Seattle.
100%. Yeah. Yes. So, you know, I still have to check with them whether they're interested, and you know, if they are, then we've got to try to set something up this week, and we're at the mercy, as we should be, with the Seattle Seahawks. You know, with Mike McDonald and John Schneider, they have to give us a day. You know, we can't create our own day. They have work to do. They're in the office starting today. So you have to be cognizant of that, and you have to work around their schedule. And if the teams can't wait, then we don't have that opportunity, and there's nothing, and we're fine with that. That's the way it should be.
No, I get it. I'm just wondering if say like go back to Pittsburgh and Buffalo, and being the fact that when they fired their coaches, if the league would give them any kind of waiver.
No, the league has been very strict about it, and no, I mean, they will not. That's just the way it is.
Hey, Aldo, I got a little echo on
unfortunately, it's coming from Rick's speakers. If do you have headsets you can put on?
I would have to leave and come back.
No, that's fine. We can live with the echo. That's fine.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, that's fine.
Not a big deal.
I got a few questions for you, Rick. You know, every Chicago Bears fan is looking at the salary cap and saying, oh my gosh, how are we going to pick up this player? How are we going to pick up that player? Who are we going to lose, and so forth? My question for you is, as an agent representing players and coaches, do you look at a team's salary cap issues, and do you have input into it in terms of, here's some suggestions as to what you do? In other words, how do you help co-manage a salary cap for teams?
Okay, so that was my past life. I no longer represent players, but I did for 25 years. Here's the way we look at it as player agents. That's your problem. No, we don't get involved in that. And by the way, I've really never seen a team being precluded from signing a player they want to sign because of a salary cap. There's ways to stretch out the money. There's ways to structure it. You do have to probably move on from a couple of year players. There's post June 1st cut. There's a whole myriad of ways to do it. Football is not necessarily as salary cap driven as, let's say, the NBA is, or the NHL, which are hard capped. The NFL is far from a hard cap system. So any team that wants to get this player, that player, can you add 15 players? No, but no team is looking for 15 free agents. Believe me, if you know, there's a reason these guys are free agents.
Yeah.
Okay, so you are big time buyer beware in the free agent market.
Follow up to that, Rick. So over at Priority Sports, where you are a partner,
Yes.
the agents that represent players, do they get a call from the general manager saying, "Hey, we either have to, make some adjustments to your contract, or
Yes.
we're going to release or trade you"? So there is some negotiations that you guys are a part of to help manage the cap.
Yeah, I mean, the team makes a decision that they're going to have to either, release your player to open up some cap room or ask for a pay cut. Those are difficult conversations. Not only are they difficult with the team, but they are extremely difficult with the player. One thing players want for sure is respect. And the ultimate disrespect is to come to a guy and say, you just, you can barely get out of bed from all you went through last year. And now if you want to stay, you got to have a pay cut. Very, very difficult. But it happens.
Well, Rick, let me ask you this: the restructures, though. Let's say you got a player that's due to make $22 million, $23 million. Those are almost automatic, just turning that into
those are just
from salary. It's just accounting, and the player doesn't really care, does he?
No, those are what we call cap deals, and that's easy because what you're doing is you're taking, let's say, guaranteed money, and then you're shifting it to a signing bonus that gets spread out over the remaining years of the contract. So that's a way to open up salary cap room without necessarily having to cut or reduce his salary. So that is a third bucket that oftentimes happens. But that's hard for teams because you're moving so much money into the future. Is that's where you can get in trouble.
Right.
You know what I mean? And a lot of teams have done that by trying to win now, not winning now stuck with a ton of liability going forward. Then when you don't get full salary cap relief when you cut a guy, especially when you did that. So that's where you have the quote dead money. And sometimes teams will get into that situation. Let's use for example like the quarterback in Miami. I mean, I don't think a final decision's made yet, but you got to think the writing's on the wall there, right? And they got a big liability, so they probably Jeff Hafley in his first year will probably be a little bit constrained on what he can do roster wise, but then open it up the following year. But they know that going in, and I'm sure Jeff was made well aware of that before he took that job and on their cap planning.
Well, let me ask you one other question along that line. So you got a player, he's making 22, and they want to take 15 of that and give it to him as a bonus. So now his salary is only going to be $7 million. But now, from a tax standpoint, you're handing them a $15 million check. Doesn't that kind of screw the player on taxes?
No, it's the same. Greg, it's the same money. So if you're doing 22, let's say you take it all the way down to the minimum, right? You would give them a signing bonus. That's how it works. You give them a signing bonus for the balance. You're still getting the same money in the same year.
No, I understand that, but the player's getting one big check versus a series of smaller checks. So doesn't that one big check get taxed at a higher rate?
I'm not an accountant, but I don't think it ever. No, I think it's taxed in the year in which it's given to you either way. So whether you spread it out or do it all at once, it's if it was spread over 2 years maybe. But your last payment, I think, is in this following calendar year. So you can tax plan it, but I don't think it's ever. Okay. I've never come up across that. So
okay,
there are fans in the chat who are saying the salary cap does not exist. Is that fair to say?
No, it exists. It's just not as penal as some others are. You know what I'm saying? So yes, it exists. It's just there's so many exceptions to the cap and so many ways to account for the cap that it's just not as penal as, let's say, the NBA, that you go into an NBA free agency and you may only have two teams with cap room. So you have to work things through trades. It's much more complicated, let's say, in the NBA than it is the NFL.
Gotcha. You and I talked briefly before the show started. I asked you, do you keep in touch with Ben during the season? I saw him really looking tired at some of the press conferences. I look at them all, and I'm a grandfather, so I look at this guy and I say, oh my gosh, he's not getting his rest. Can you tell us a little bit about how he maintained himself during the season, health-wise?
Sure. Yeah, we do. We try to talk every Friday because that's the time where coaches get off in the afternoons to be with their families and take a deep breath. So, yeah, I would say no. His energy level was good. You know, he's 39 years old. He's not like the three of us. So, I think he's got a lot more energy than we do. But no, he balances it pretty good. But all coaches, it's sad. It's not sad. It's just reality. I mean, they don't see their families very much Monday through Sunday through Thursday. Sunday night they do after a game, but Monday through Thursday they're there real late, and that Friday afternoon is sacred time for them, and a little bit on Saturday too. They'll get family time, but that's really all they get during the season. It's hard.
No, it's like kiss your wife goodbye at the beginning of training camp.
Yeah,
and then say hello again after Christmas.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Rick, do you have any good Greg Gabriel stories you can share with us?
Greg was great, man. He was a grinder. He's a gruff guy, as you can tell. I wouldn't say he was like warm and fuzzy when you called him. No. Probably a little annoyed, but
come
he was
on. I was anytime I talked to an agent, I was always had really good conversations. And I'll tell you what, I came coming from the Giants, where George Young had this philosophy that the agent was the enemy. And so, you had a wall right away. But then when I came here, and I had worked with Jerry in New York, but he developed an entirely different philosophy when he was in Tampa and then came here. We looked at the agent as our partners. And so you wanted to befriend as many agents as you could help the agents out, help them find players so that you're going to get a favor from them. It might not be in a contract, but it might be, in some way. And so that's the way I looked at it.
100%. I mean, that was so smart because this is what people don't understand. We all have a role in all of this, right? Everybody has a lane. And the NFL is a relationship business first and foremost, okay? So let's say, for instance, 30% of the league are undrafted, right? So undrafted free agency comes the night of the last day of the draft. And I will tell you 99.9% of the time, there's so many ties that you're going to break the tie with somebody who allowed you to do your job, who you had a relationship with. And free agency, the same thing. I mean, you just tend to do business with people that allow you to do your job than people that make it impossible to do your job. And Greg's right. And Greg, he was great. He always was available because, we're not out there as agents, looking at film and going in buildings and talking, we need help. We need referrals. We need to say, hey, I really like this guy over here. You maybe should give him a call and try to get him as a client. Those are invaluable relationships. Greg was always great about engaging and helping, and then you get it back in spades. You really do. So yes, I'm glad he said that, and he was right. And it's all.
I got. You might not know this, but right now, 75-80% of my work is with agents.
Yeah.
Doing evaluations for agents.
Yeah.
On potential clients, and I'm literally doing it every single day. Yeah,
it's fun. It keeps your, right. It keeps your toes in it, keeps you relevant, keeps you being able to do things like this and speak, intelligently. It's incredible. I've only been out of the player business maybe 7-8 years, and I look at the list our player agents signed, and I don't know any of them. Literally none of them. So it's like, I can't believe how quickly you can just sort of lose touch with it if you don't actively stay involved.
Squeegee has a question. Do cap casualties come at a discount?
I'm not sure what that means.
So if So if a player releases another player from his from the team because of money, can the Chicago Bears or whatever team go in and expect to get a deal on that player?
No,
No, he's not getting money from the
No.
other team.
no, you're just cut.
Yeah.
That's
Unless
it.
you have guaranteed money, you have no money.
Contracts in the NFL are year, and Rick can
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, are year to year. The only guarantee is the signing bonus. Now, there are more contracts now that have guarantees in them.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, let's say you got a $5 million salary and they don't want to pay that anymore and they cut you. They save $5 million and the player gets nothing.
Yeah, you get nothing. I mean, you get your what's called your P5 guarantees you'll get, but they're subject to offset. So basically, if another team signs you in that year and you were a $5 million player and you get a contract for $5 million, $1, the team that cut you is fully relieved of that obligation. And now the new team picks it up. If you get $2.5 million, then the new team pays $2.5 million and the old team pays you $2.5 million on the guaranteed money.
Rick, in the last couple of minutes that we have you here, Chris wants to know how do you think Ben is going to do in his second year? All Bears fans have high expectations for next year. Is it fair for us to think that we were knocking on the door this year, but we're going to break it down next year? Your thoughts?
Well, listen, none of us know until we get into it. You know, some factors this coming year that we didn't have last year. We're playing a first place schedule, so that's harder right away. As Ben said beautifully, that he's going to walk in that locker room day one. It's not going to be the same guys that were there this year. There's going to be some faces not there. There's going to be some new faces. And so you're starting from scratch every single year. Are we further along than when Ben walked in this year? Sure. They understand the system. They know the system. They don't have to learn the system. We all saw just how much improvement Caleb made during the year. It was, but he hasn't scratched the surface yet of how good he can be. Greg, with an astute football mind, will be the first to tell you that there's still a lot of things that Ben's going to try to clean up with him and just get him to be really a Hall of Fame quarterback, because he has Hall of Fame skills. We all know that. So there's just so many things that have to happen. You have to injuries. You got to stay healthy. You lose key players, that makes it more difficult. So there's a lot of variables, but do we have hope for a first time in a long time being a Chicago Bear fan, that this is going to be pretty good for a while? I think we all do. And I think we absolutely, it's so much fun. I've had the best time this year living in this city, watching Bear fans basically, come out of hibernation. It was absolutely wonderful. Wonderful.
Well put.
Yeah.
Are you, as somebody involved in the business of representing coaches and what have you, are you allowed to publicly root for a team?
It's so funny because one of my clients is Dan Campbell. Okay. And so when I ducked the first game like the plague, I didn't go when they played the second game of the season. I was nowhere to be found. I was on my couch. I wanted nothing to do with it. Then when the Lions came back to Chicago, the second to last game of the season, or the last game of the season actually, I went neutral close. So I'm geared up in Bears gear for every game, except that one I went full neutral. So little Switzerland when that one came around, but
well,
you've got Quentin too in Washington.
Yes,
so
I do. Same thing.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Neutral.
Yeah, same thing. I go, and this year they all played each other. The North played the East, so
right.
It was a lot of neutral this year. Luckily that goes away.
So let me ask you one last question.
Sure. No problem.
And you probably don't have the answer, but you might have a feeling.
Go ahead.
Because I'm a Bills fan, being I grew up in Buffalo,
Yep.
and my daughters are season ticket holders. They still live there.
Sure.
What's your best take on who the coach will be?
I'll be honest. They really started from scratch as soon as they let Sean go. So I don't think there's a leader in the clubhouse by any way, shape, or form, Greg. I think they're literally just in the process, and they're going to start some second interviews, and I look for a little bit of a surprise, maybe. I don't think there's anybody you can pinpoint. I've had less information this year than I've ever had, on what teams will actually do. A lot of times you kind of know going in what's going to happen.
Right.
Not this year, man. It's just, I'm as surprised as everybody else is. So.
Rick, again, you're just a fabulous guest. We look forward to having you. I begged Greg, can you please call Rick?
Listen,
and Greg has always came through with. Thank you very much for.
No, you know what? You guys are great. I love talking football with people who know the game and aren't looking at it necessarily from only a fan perspective. That gets a little annoying to me at times. I love fans, but to talk football, it's anytime, guys. Really, it'd be my pleasure.
Thank you, Rick.
Well, thank you very much, buddy. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right.
We'll see you soon.
See you later.
What a great guy. Man, you know how to pick him, Greg. Great job. And by the way, again, thank you, Brandon Lawson, for we're getting all sorts of compliments on our hoodies here. And so I just want to good, better, and best. And then Greg's get comfortable being uncomfortable. Great designs there, Brandon Lawson. Thank you very much. What do you think about that interview and the things that he said? Anything that you want to amplify?
Well, it's funny. It's because originally when I sent Rick a text and said, I was talking strictly about Bears and Ben Johnson, then it hit me. Wait a minute, we're in the middle of a coaching cycle, and that's where the information is cool. And he knew about as much as you and I know. He's got one guy. He's got Kubiak, and Kubiak's kind of, in what's the word, limbo, because he's being penalized because he's in the Super Bowl.
And he might be the best candidate in this cycle.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know that. I mean, nobody knows that. I mean, Obviously, Rick's going to jump up on the table for his guy. But, reality is, I don't think there's no Ben Johnson. There's no Mike Vrabel. There's a few good candidates that, Harbaugh was head and shoulders above everybody else. McDermott would have been had he not been fired just a week ago. And so he decided, it's so late in the process. There are already jobs filled. He's still under contract, so he's going to get paid. Guy's been working for the last 20 years as a coach. He's going to take a year off, and he should.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then he will become probably the top candidate next year.
Mm-hmm.
And just the way that whole thing went down just rubs me the wrong way. Because I talked about it with Rick, and you heard, I said, my thinking was, if you're going to hire a coach, you better have somebody who's better,
right?
That you can get who's better. How do you know the guy you're going to get is better than a Sean McDermott who got you to? I mean, that was an awful team when he took it over. Okay, 2017, 2018, whenever it was, and now they're a perennial playoff team, Super Bowl contender. How are you getting better than that?
Right. And why doesn't the GM have some accountability?
He had no accountability, and he's the guy who horrible drafts and some horrible cap management. But that's my opinion.
I saw somebody on X. I apologize to the person who wrote it, but because I'd like to give him credit. He says that a lot of times in business and in sports, guys like GMs, they manage up better than they manage down. And so what he meant by that is perhaps the general manager was managing owner expectations and protecting himself from accountability. Yeah,
always.
Yeah. So, and by the way, I did not see the press conference with the Buffalo Bills owner, but I saw your reaction.
Oh, my God. It was absolute. First of all, the owner gets up there, who is not good in front of the media at all. And he's talking about it, and everything he said was the reason why we should have kept Sean McDermott.
Jeez. That's funny.
And you're looking at it and you're going, okay, now tell me why you fired him. I mean,
that is wild. Well, fortunately,
now, if you knew you were going to get somebody that could take that next step this year, different story. I think this year is a really bad year, especially as compared to last year, to say we're going to move forward. That guy's got, whoever the coach is going to be. And personally, I think it's going to be either Brian Daboll or Brady, the offensive coordinator. Daboll's from there. He really wants the job. And Josh had his best years with Daboll as the coordinator. Now, Daboll had his problems in New York. Were they all his? Part of it is because he didn't hire a good staff.
Right.
But as far as getting the best out of the offense, and he knows all those players, he can do that. But it's still on him to put together a good staff, especially get a good defensive coordinator. And if he can't do that, then he'd fail again. But that's what I think is going to get it. But I could be totally wet on that.
Well, let's turn our attention to before we get into the Bears, let's turn our attention to what happened yesterday with these conference championship games. First, the big controversy, of course, is the weather and playing outside in the snow. And I saw comments by a lot of people I respect who's saying it's ridiculous that we're playing games in the snow, particularly a conference championship in the game in the snow. The league needs to do something about it. And I'm like, what? I mean, this is football, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
I don't care if it was messy. You learn to deal with the elements, whether they're
first of all, you know what the forecast is days before.
Right. You plan
so
for
you've
it,
got your plan. Now, could there be a surprise? Yeah. But in that case, I don't think there was any surprise. Most of the first half was a pretty darn good weather. And then the second half was in a mess. Hey, Denver was handcuffed. They're using a quarterback that never plays. They lost their starter. And to expect them to do much more than they did is just asking too much. I mean, that guy, you could put, Caleb go down and you could put Bajan in. Bajan is more viable to get you a win than what Denver had.
I totally agree with that, and I'm not being a homer when I say that.
Yeah, I'm not either. I'm just knowing from what I know about the quarterback, about the players.
Another person on X said, "I am so happy that the Bears didn't go to Seattle and play."
I saw that.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Because I think, first of all, as a fan, I'm of the philosophy, fear nobody. You get your ass kicked, get over it, and get ready for the next game. I would have loved the opportunity for the Bears to go to Seattle. They would have grown as a team.
I've said this a number of times. Every game you play takes on its own identity.
Yes.
Okay. The fact that Seattle beat the Rams pretty good, and I didn't watch much of the second half. I fell asleep, to be honest. So that just because that's how that game shaped up between those two teams doesn't mean that a game between the Bears and the Seahawks would have been the same way. Number one, Seattle's going to put up an entirely different game plan, and the Bears are going to have a game plan to try to attack Seattle. Seattle's a tough place to play, no question about it. It's loud, but to say that they're going to get blown out or get beat easily like the Rams did, I don't believe that. And the Rams really still had a chance.
Absolutely.
They just couldn't stop them.
Yes, indeed. Are you happy with the matchup for the Super Bowl, Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots?
Boring.
I'm kind of pissed off the Patriots are back so soon.
Well, you got to take your hat off to Vrabel. He did a hell of a job. They had a ton of money, cap money, last spring, so a year ago. And they went out and they spent it wisely. They got some decent free agents. They had a good draft. Josh McDaniels did a good job with the quarterback. The guy's good, but you put him in pressure situations, I don't think he's as good as some other guys. but he still got him to the Super Bowl. You got to give him the accolades for that. Are they going to stay on top? I don't know. I mean, Buffalo's got Josh Allen, and it's really going to be dependent on who they hire.
Right.
And then to go from there. I mean, they split the series during the year, so we'll just see what'll happen next year. I think the Bills will have a coach before the end of the week. Myself, I don't think they're going to wait till they haven't even talked to Kubiak yet, unless you do it kind of breaking the rules wise.
Right.
And that'd be too risky.
Yeah.
But so I don't think they're going to wait 2 weeks to talk to Kubiak and then set themselves back if he's already, because he can interview this week with 2 other teams. Theoretically, he can make a deal with one of those 2 teams this week and start putting together a staff, even though it can't be announced.
Yeah.
So I mean, that puts Buffalo way, way back as far as trying to do anything with him.
Yeah.
So,
well, what you just mentioned there about tampering, let's say, it leads to one of my questions as we get into the Chicago Bears. And I was going to ask Rick this, but I thought maybe it's an unfair question. What about tampering? Is it going on right now? Are agents and people from NFL teams having hint, little elbow to the side? Hey, my guy might be interested. Hey, can I take you out to lunch? And pass a little note with a number on it, stuff like that. Is that happening?
Well, yeah. I mean, not as deeply as you might think.
Okay.
Okay, you've got the East-West game is tomorrow, and they had the practices. The heavy practice ended on yesterday, so you had personnel and decision makers in Dallas there, and agents were there because they got their players there.
Mm-hmm. So
they had a little discussion here, a little discussion there, and some of it's just feelers.
Yeah.
It's not, and the same thing, the practices start Wednesday at the Senior Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got the same thing going there because most of the league's going to be down there. Same type of discussions. And then we fast forward to, 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, really, you got the combine. And that's where a lot of stuff is done.
Yeah.
Okay. Tampering. Yeah. That's tampering. If you want to use the word tampering, it's tampering full go. Okay. Because it's everybody's there. The Players Association has a big meeting. Every agent who's worth a grain of salt is there. Everybody from the teams are there. GM's got suites. You're entertaining people up there. You're talking. Are you making deals? No. Are you laying a foundation? That's what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I want to thank Lutz for his second $5 donation. Thank you very much, Lutz. And he writes, boring is correct. If you're thinking Bad Bunny halftime show will be bad, wait until you see the Seahawks demolish the Patriots. It's over by halftime. By the way, I am a big Bad Bunny fan. He is a Puerto Rican, so I'm anxious to see his music and our Puerto Rican culture shared a little bit with people from around the world, although Bad Bunny is already a global sensation. It seems like American audiences need to be introduced to his music. That's my statement for today. I know a lot of people are already saying.
I'll be honest, I know very little about the guy.
Yeah.
So.
And I understand that, we don't want to hear political stuff during halftime shows, and Green Day is going to do the pregame show. And so I understand that there's some political issues involved, and I don't blame people for that. I wouldn't want to hear, differing political points of view in my entertainment too, when I'm just trying to enjoy the Super Bowl. I get that.
Well, and we're getting a little off topic here, but whose fault is that? It's the NFL's. The NFL is the people that hired these music groups that might be a little controversial here or there.
Mm-hmm.
So then you got to expect it. So the NFL's, if you want to put the blame on somebody, put the blame on the NFL. I think that the league has gone a little bit crazy. As far as, some of the halftime entertainment, and you got, and this is my personal opinion. So people are watching on television, but everybody in that stadium paid more than $1,000 a ticket. And that's the number one audience you should be playing to.
I agree with that. And I agree with Swifty. He says, why are people getting so offended about the halftime act? Just don't watch it. There's other stuff. There's been talk about counter programming on different stations. I remember they used to do some Super Bowl halftime show with rabbits or something running around. I don't know what the hell. But this has really opened up a can of worms. Look at Bad Bunny hates America. Fuck him. Okay, so let's talk about something else.
Change the subject. This is not a political network.
Yes, please. Okay, let's talk about the Chicago Bears. I got questions already that I've filtered in. Let's start with Petty King. He says, do you think Ben will target a left tackle, defensive tackle, or edge with that first pick? It's something that we've talked about a lot. Please provide Petty a detailed
I'll give you my personal opinion. I think people saying they're going to try to get a left tackle is ludicrous.
Mm-hmm.
They got their left tackle. He's hurt. That doesn't mean you go get a guy to replace him because you just spent a second-round pick on the guy. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
You will know before the draft. You might even know a lot by free agency where he stands with his rehab. And, I was told by a doctor last week that best case scenario is 6 months, which is right before camp opens. Okay, now a lot of that depends on exactly how the surgery went. Were there any complications or whatever? And I've said this before, but I'll repeat it. Every time somebody comes out of surgery, the surgeon says it was a success. I've never heard a surgeon once say, well, there's some problems here, how he performs in rehab, how he attacks rehab, that's on Ozzie. Now, knowing Ozzie as we do, that he's going to be a grinder going after that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he's going to do what he has to do, but some guys heal fast, some guys feel slow. We don't know what he's like. But in the meantime, you've got Theo, who didn't do a bad job. You got Amagaji. You're trying to hold the fort for maybe 3 or 4 games, something like that. And that's only a maybe. So to say we're going to use a first-round pick after you already used a second-round pick, what are you doing with that second-round pick when he's healthy?
Right. Well, let me ask you this, because this is related to a question. If on your board, let's say Ryan Pose's board, you've got a left tackle who you have at the top of the board above all the other players who are available at 25. Do you bypass that left tackle and pick a defensive tackle or defensive end who's a little lower on your board?
Well, the reality is nobody's going to ever know the answer to that question.
Yeah. What would you do? What would you do?
It depends what the grades are. If you've got a grouping of grades,
okay,
and that's, generally our board was, and if he's a first round player, he was an A. So let's say I have 3 A68s. Okay, theoretically, they are the same talent level. I'm taking the one that helps me the best now and has the best future.
Gotcha.
Regardless of the position. I don't think that the left tackle position is as big a need as a lot of fans seem to think it is. Mm-hmm. And for what I just spent 6 or 7 minutes,
Sure.
talking about, it's a ludicrous move to spend a high pick to try to replace the guy who was really coming on. And it's not like his career's over. He's going to be back. He's going to be back this year. We just don't know exactly when, and we're not going to know, and the Bears aren't going to know, but they will know before the draft. What's the prognosis look like?
Right. And Greg, I've just started my evaluation of players. And so once you and I get figured down, we'll be talking about specific names and so forth. But there do appear to be some tackles coming out in this draft who have swing tackle capabilities. If a good one of those guys is available, somebody who could be a great backup.
You're talking in the first round?
Yes. So is that too pricey?
Okay, so here, let me ask you. You're going to take a swing tackle to be a backup in the first round?
Yeah, well, I would only do that because the trenches are so important. And you've got a guy who at left guard who is now in his mid-30s. You've got Darnell Wright, who has not missed a game. And he's superb, but you might not be able to sign him.
Yeah, you know if you'll be able to sign him. I mean, that's thinking negative. Because you can tag him. You're going to have him
for at least
two more years.
Okay.
I don't look at it as a problem.
Okay.
Everybody's trying to make it a problem. I don't see it as a problem at all. If I'm sitting in the office, I'm keeping an eye on what the rehab's doing. And you saw in the last game that they put Tooney out at left tackle. You know what? He played pretty fucking good. Okay, so that's an answer too. And what happened to the guard who went there? He played pretty damn good. The problem's already here. The problem's solved as far as I think, like you say, there's other things. Let me put it this way. You're not going to take a pick in the first round to be a Band-Aid when you already settled that last year in the draft.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
it's just that's really ludicrous way of thinking, in my opinion.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because I don't want to give up on Karan Amagachi. So what is your hope of what he is doing? Do you want him here at Hallis Hall throughout the offseason? Are you saying,
why wouldn't he be? He's a local kid.
Oh, that's right. He is. That's right. So now you can kind of keep an eye on him. You can't do anything with him according to the CBA, but what can the Bears do to ensure that he is progressing so that they feel comfortable that he could be a candidate for that starting position?
Whether he is done with his rehab, we don't know the answer to that.
Sure.
But if he is still in rehab, he's probably still there 4 or 5 days a week.
Yeah. Okay.
Trainers are there. You can work with the trainers. That's not against the CBA. And, they've got an indoor, right next to the weight room. They got a little indoor grass area that's probably, 30 yards wide and 20 yards deep, something like that. That's field turf. You can do a lot of shit in there now with other guys. And you don't have to have a coach around, and it's totally legal.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of stuff you can do.
Okay.
The onus is on the player to do it.
Right. That's the key there. That's the key. And then just another thing, getting back to Ozzie for a minute. You said the onus is on the player, and that's the other huge concern, because this particular injury takes a lot of work and a lot of dedication by Ozzie Trapillo. Braxton Jones talked openly about the mental issues.
Totally different injury.
Yeah, but
different people.
But the psychological aspects.
Right.
I mean, he didn't want to work out, or wanted to work out when other people weren't available to push him and so forth. So hopefully Ozzie has a different mentality than Braxton.
Okay, I got a perfect name for you to bring up. Same injury. The Ohio State left tackle a year ago, the Chiefs got in the first round. Exact same injury. He didn't miss a freaking minute. Now, granted, he had the injury 6-7 weeks earlier.
Right.
But he didn't miss any time. I mean, didn't miss any training camp time.
Right. Well,
so based on the fact that, just use the timetable, how soon was he ready before training camp? I don't have the answer to that.
Yeah.
But I know the answer, what I was told by a doctor, and he said the hope is that in 6 months he's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 6 months is before camp opens.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's keep our fingers crossed. We'll, of course, closely monitor that. And Greg, is always great at picking up information as things go along, which always informs his opinions. So we'll be talking about this as the shows go on this off season. All right, let's get to another question here. I hate to ask you this, Greg, because I know it's bullshit, but I want to do it out of respect to PZ 3443. Has Greg heard anything about Joe Burrow going to Minnesota in a multiplayer trade?
Cincinnati is not trading Burrow.
No fucking way.
Okay, so I mean, he is the franchise. Let me go over the cap. Because Joe.
And I saw that rumor too. It was Joe for McCarthy and future number one draft. No way.
Let's see what his contract says here.
That's one of those make-believe insiders that posted that.
Right now, we're going to see so much BS. I got a note in my phone that I put in last year after the draft, and I'm going to read it to you while I'm waiting for that to pop up.
Okay.
And this was just for shows going on this year. 26 draft. Remember all the false narratives put out by fans, Genty, the Michigan tackle, and everything else. Everything was total bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? We're going to hear that. You had that one guy, put out the thing the night before the draft. The Bears have a deal in place. Like it's a done deal. No, they didn't. They didn't even try.
That's hilarious, man.
The guy they wanted is the guy they got.
Mm-hmm.
So, the stuff we're going to see, and then the fans are going to say, oh, they got to get this guy. They got to get this guy. Their opinion. That doesn't mean it's Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson's opinion.
Right.
All right, and with the success they had this year, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Squeegee has a question about the running back situation. He says, with the exit of Bieniemy, do you see changes in the running back room, or will Swift and Monangai continue to be the primary runners? Do you think we need a change of tempo or a short yardage back?
No, you got a short yardage back. His name is Monangai.
Monangai.
Wait, I'm trying to just go to Joe Burrow for a second. Okay.
Oh, that's right.
It's not, okay. They take their dead money. This is on a cut for this year is $91.7 million.
And on a trade is probably close to that, right?
Yeah. Okay. You got a lot of guaranteed money in there from the signing bonus. It's anybody who thinks that he's going to get traded is just totally out of their mind. It's just not going to happen.
The only slim possibility is if the Bengals know something about his knee or some injury thing that
they're still going to take the hit, though.
Exactly.
And that's a hit you can't afford to take.
But in return, but if you get a promising quarterback, and I'm not sure JJ McCarthy is a promising quarterback, but if you get that in return, you can take the hit a little bit better. But that's a moot point. Let's move on. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I'm not going to bother myself with stuff that's not, is never going to happen.
Yeah, it's bullshit. It really is. It's bullshit. Okay, Squeegee wanted to know about the running back situation, and so I'm going to just follow up on that. Do you think the Bears are going to draft a running back? Because I certainly think that day 3 is a prime time to draft a running back.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could take one day 3. I don't think it's going to be a preliminary thing. Remember, another topic to point out, last year, starting with the day they hired Ben Johnson, they're going to get Swift's out of here. Ben hates Swift. And I made a call to Detroit to find out, and we talked about it here. Ben Johnson had nothing to do with Swift getting traded to Philadelphia. Okay, he got traded the day after the draft, after they got Gibbs from University of Alabama with their pick. It was a general manager move. And the reason they then traded Swift is because Gibbs and Swift are the same type of runners. Yeah. And so you didn't want two of the same. And Swift had his best year as a pro this year. He's got a very manageable deal next year, like $8.5 million or something like that.
Right.
Okay. Why are you going to change that?
Mm-hmm.
And you got Monangai going into a second year who's going to be better in the second year than he was, and he was pretty damn good. He ran for just under 800 yards this year. Could you get a third guy somewhere in the draft? Sure. Is it a priority? No. You know, it's we heard that all off season. They're getting rid of Swift. They're getting rid of Swift. No, they weren't.
Mm-hmm. That's right. They really never had an intention, unless some great.
No, it's. I mean, people come up with this thing, and it's just narratives that they hope happens, but they're not reality.
Okay. I got a question for you, and I thought that Rick was going to answer my question about the salary cap a little differently, but his response to the cap left open for fans the sliver of the possibility that one of these high-priced defensive ends, like a Trey Hendrickson, could come to the Bears with some clever manipulation of the cap. Do you agree with that thought?
I agree it could happen. I think it's highly unlikely.
Yeah.
Okay. You look at the cap. I mean, right now, let me get to over. I don't know how it keeps changing day to day, but it does. Yeah, because
new information.
The other day they were 4 million over, and now they're like 17 million over. I mean, like, how does that happen?
They don't have access to the actual numbers, and so they're just getting news reports, and that's why they adjust it. Is my thinking on that.
Well, I can't figure it. Right now, they're 17.3 million over the cap for next year. A week ago, they were like 4.5 or something. So, you know, how that came out that way. And the one thing they got is like Joe Tyron Shoyinka is going to count $576,000 against the cap. Why? The bonus money would have been paid by his previous team, Cleveland. Cleveland's hit with that. The Bears aren't. So I don't get that at all, but you know we'll see how that works, and you know going forward and over the next couple months.
Brad Biggs, who you and I both hold in high esteem, he's one of the best in the business. He wrote on his Q&A column, I think it was the final one for the season, and I'm paraphrasing here, Brad, so if you're listening and I get it wrong, I apologize, but the way he wrote about Tremaine Edmunds, it sounds like Edmunds has a tough road to come back to the Chicago Bears because he's kind of the most likely guy to cut to save some salary cap. Have you looked into that, and do you think that Tremaine Edmunds is a necessary piece and that the Bears will retain him in 2026?
Tremaine Edmunds is, until he got dinged up, was having his best season as a pro.
And he was dinged up for the rest of the season.
Right. Okay. So now he's got, you save by this is cutting, not trading. By cutting, you got a $2.4 million cap hit, and you save 15.
That's not bad.
Okay, and it's I believe it's the last year of his contract. Let me just see. Might be another year. Yeah, it is the last year of his contract.
Right.
So I'll go back to what Rick and I were talking about with head coaches. You better have in mind who's going to replace him and who's better.
Exactly. Exactly. Absolutely.
Okay? So, that's part of that. Why he is a whipping boy, as good as he played in the defense this year, I don't know.
Yeah.
To me, TJ's a lot more big, and this is me saying this, and he just got an extension last year. He's a bigger liability than Edmonds because TJ can't cover, and Edmonds can. To me, TJ's become a 2-down linebacker.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And with the injuries that he sustained this year, it appears like his body may be breaking down. Is that safe to say? I mean, I hate to say that.
I don't know. He's still a young guy. It's, you're in the off season now. You rest. You get your body back in good working order. So it's when you keep trying to play hurt that sometimes you have a tendency to get other things hurt. And just compound. And perfect example is Jalen and the nickel. They couldn't help themselves. And really the same thing with Roma Dunze, because these guys want to play. They're competitors, but they're not ready to play. Yeah. And then they end up hurting the team because they're playing. But, it's they're better than what you can put out there as a reserve.
Yeah, I hear you. Brandon Lawson says, damn, those hoodies are sweet. He picked them out and designed them. Back to the negative 35 degrees. By the way, I just want to say this about Brandon. He's become a good friend of Greg and I, so we talk on DMs, and he does incredible work helping people with addiction issues in the prison system. He goes from facility to facility, prison facilities, jail facilities, what have you, and he helps people with his talks, advice, and so forth. And so bravo to him. He's one of the real heroes. We should be sending him hoodies, especially since he's out in minus 35 degrees. We'll have him on a Barroom Network show in the future because I want to learn more about the great work he's doing to help people, giving them a second chance, a third chance. So let's move on, Greg, unless you want to share something else about that.
No, that's good. I like what he writes, and I really appreciate these.
Yes,
especially when it's cold out. It was -2 when I got up.
Yes, mine might be too good because I'm starting to sweat a little bit, but that's a different story. I mean, this is really gorgeous. Chris Watts wants to know about all these positional coaches, not all, but there's a few that are starting to have interviews. Al Harris is being interviewed for a coordinator position. We've lost Eric Bieniemy. Declan Doyle is interviewing for a coordinator position that might allow him to call plays.
I think that Declan Doyle, that job's already filled. I think. I may be wrong on that. And do I think that Harris is going to get a coordinator's job this year? No.
A little too early, I think?
I think he'd be back here. Bieniemy, you obviously lost. So you got to – and you know what? I'm not worried in the slightest if you got a little turnover because of the really strong staff he put together after he got this job. One of the things that a coach does is he's had it. It's not like he's starting from scratch. He's got a short list of coaches for every single position. Right. So if he loses a guy, he's just going to plug in the next guy who can be maybe just as good, if not better.
Yeah.
Bieniemy was a guy that was needed this year. The way he brought those guys around, especially when you had a rookie. And, if you don't have Bieniemy, maybe you don't get that production out of an young guy that you got. But now the next guy is to help him take the next step. And I'm not worried at all about who Ben might replace him with.
Thank you, Benjamin. And this feels like a cut and paste job. Declan Doyle has withdrawn his name from consideration for the Eagles' offensive coordinator vacancy per sources. Doyle opts to remain in Chicago working with Ben and Caleb. Thank you, Benjamin.
Now, I'm going to say this, and it's no slap in the face for Declan Doyle. You know why you withdraw from consideration?
Because he wasn't going to
get you're not going to get the job.
That's the way that usually works, right?
Yeah. So Here's the one thing: he's never. We've seen what happens with guys that have never been play callers, and you get a job as a play caller. Over half of them fail because they've never been put in that position. There's one name that's kind of hot, the former quarterback at Denver, who's going to get interviewed by Buffalo and the Raiders today. And he's a young guy. He's only like 30 years old. I can't think of his name. He's never called plays. He's only been a coach 3 years.
Oh, okay.
And you're going to make him a head coach?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. The
Philip
other
Rivers withdrew from consideration for the Buffalo job today. Why?
Why?
He wasn't going to get the job.
Right. That's so funny. Baron Bruce says, the Cleveland Browns job guys are dropping out like crazy.
I know that doesn't tell you nobody wants to work there. And did you see the stuff that came out during the week? The preliminary stuff that they have the guys doing when they come in, taking a psychological test and all this other stuff. Like, no, I ain't going. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, Davis Webb is the name.
Davis, yeah.
Thank you, Swanee. All right, let's get to some of the other questions we have here. We're doing well on time. Squeegee is asking, do you think we should prioritize defensive tackle, edge, linebacker, left tackle, or DB in the upcoming draft?
Well, I already talked about left tackle.
Yep.
It's you got to remember this, because I say it every year. You don't talk about the draft until you get through with free agency. Who do you gain in free agency? Who do you lose in free agency? Then they go on to the draft. So this year, I do not expect the number of signings to be anywhere close to what they were the first few years Ryan was here. And, when with the line, with Jackson Tooney, he traded draft picks for those guys. So they weren't free agents. So are those positions of need? Yes. I don't agree left tackle is a position for need. I already had my rant, so I'm not going to do it again.
Yeah.
But, we got to just be patient and go a step at a time. There's a process that the teams go through, and everybody wants to get, ahead of the process. Like I've seen articles, I open up and I got Microsoft News is my homepage. And there are so many BS articles written by these, bear goggles on, heavy, and they are all total BS.
Yeah.
And all they are is clickbait that have no semblance to reality whatsoever. There, most of the time, absolutely no truth to it. Or they take something that somebody said and try to take it a step further or whatever. Just, what happens is what happens. These guys get paid a lot of money to make those decisions.
Yeah.
And you know who they aren't going to listen to? The fans.
Yeah. Greg, I got to tell you this. I'm going to get in my soapbox just for 20 seconds. I use AI because I'm a one-man, do graphics, collect information. So I use AI to help me get work done, especially now since I've had the stroke.
By the way, your left hand seems to be working pretty good.
Yeah, well, I'm telling you, man, it's gotten a lot better, man. I am making some progress. So,
good.
But anyway, I ask AI a question, and so it comes up with different responses, and I always check to see where did they get that information from, because there'll be a link, and it's from some of these websites that are written by guys in their underwear in the basement and stuff. And I'm like, I can't believe you're quoting what this guy said. It's not, it's just ridiculous. It's so AI, artificial intelligence. They shouldn't call it artificial intelligence. They should call it artificial stupidity or what have you. So it's very annoying and dangerous because a lot of misinformation is spread. Not just in sports.
I trust the process here. I think they have earned our trust. My personal opinion. Did Ryan make some mistakes early? Yep. And he'll be the first one to tell you so. But I think last year pretty much hit a home run. I know people don't like the Deo signing. The coaches aren't among those. The coaches love the Deo signing.
Yeah.
So, did he do what fans want? Nope. But he did what the coaches want. And that's why you signed the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you notice, there was a drop-off in the run defense after he got hurt.
Yeah, indeed. That is a great point. A great point. I mean, we don't take into account the injury issues when we evaluate that defense. Dennis Allen, I thought, really worked miracles. There were some games, of course, that you look back and say, boy, I wish Dennis would have done this or would have done that. But it's the injuries that we are not fully taking into consideration when we evaluate the defense. This defense really played well the last 6 quarters of the playoffs. They played outstanding football.
Yeah, but when you think about, you lost 3 corners for pretty much the whole year.
Yes.
Smith for the whole year.
Yes.
I mean, they had to do it with the mirrors. They had a guy that led the league in freaking interceptions who nobody wanted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so true. And the other thing is, in our last open, you talked about the value of Kyler Gordon, that nickel back, and how he helps in the run game. And so we saw when he looked healthy in the one full game.
The game, really the Rams game, because he didn't look very good the week before against Green Bay.
I agree.
He took a step, and he still wasn't close to 100% in that Rams game.
Yep.
But you saw what he means to the defense as a whole. Gardner Johnson made some plays early on, but then he kind of leveled off, and people exposed his weaknesses. And one of his weaknesses is playing man.
That's right. That's a great point. Frankly, I don't think he's coming back to the Bears next season. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, people are trying to interpret some of the stuff that Ryan said last week and Ben said last week. And I take it with a grain of salt, because in many cases they haven't even started any contractual negotiations with the agents. They don't know what the real cap is going to be yet. Can you go out and get money right away from players you currently have under contract just by restructuring salary? Yep. But I keep saying, don't do it to a guy that you don't think is going to be here for the long haul, because then you're going to get in trouble.
Right. So Kevin Byard because we got a question up on the screen. What's up with our safeties? It appears that Ryan Poles is really interested in bringing him back. For him to mention the name is big. So what is he, 32, 33 years?
32, I think.
Okay. So it would be advantageous if you can sign him to a 3-year deal.
I'd do a 2-year deal.
But I was going to say that third year being void, so you can spread the money out a little.
Void contracts bite you in the ass. Personally, I don't like them. Yeah. There are teams that do it, but when you have it, you get killed down the road. When the player is no longer. Remember this, I've said this 1,000 times. Player has got to give you in production what he's getting paid in dollars.
Yes.
Okay. So if he's getting paid $7 million, he's got to give you $7 million back in production.
Mm-hmm. I'm totally with you. Totally with you. By the way, does it bother you that Velus Jones is in the Super Bowl?
No.
He's not going to suit up. That's what I said.
He's suited up the last 2 games.
Was he suited up yesterday? I didn't know
that
it was. Okay. Well, I'll tell you something. The guy is an ungrateful son of a bitch.
And he's playing running back, not receiver.
Yeah, which the Bears should have kept him in, and they would have if he had not fumbled in that first game against the Titans.
He fumbled the kickoff, and that was it. But, you know, a lot of those things, you go back to the 24 season, and it was just a freaking nightmare. It's like, forget about it. Put it out of your mind. Anything that happened then, just forget about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw the growth that Caleb Williams made in 2025 when he was actually coached.
Mm-hmm.
So, saw all these false narratives about him all during the 24 season and into training camp of this year, and he's put them all to rest.
Squeegee has a question, which I think is actually quite funny because you're the guy that drafted Devin Hester. He said, yes, would you consider drafting a special team ace like Caden Wetjen or Hurley, the defensive back? We haven't gotten into.
I haven't studied either one of those players. But
you would draft.
Where do you take him? We traded in order to be able to do that and take a specialist. We traded out of the first round. We had like the 27th pick or something like that.
Right.
So so we traded out to get pick up some extra picks to make it worthwhile for us to draft Devin.
Mm-hmm. And you were holding your breath and praying throughout that time that he would drop to you, right?
Yeah. I called Devin to say we're going to draft him. He goes, for real? Yeah, why wouldn't it be for real? He goes, well, Tennessee had called him and said that they were going to draft him, and then they never did.
Oh, look at that. And they are
and they took that running back from USC instead. There was a fight in their draft room. The GM wanted Devin. The head coach wanted this running back. They took the running back, and the running back flopped.
Yeah. All right. Next question is from Paul. He says, with the Bears having a late first-round pick, will Poles and Ben stay with the best player available with obvious D-line needs? Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before, but that is kind of a quandary. You know, you need
best player. I always answer it this way: best player according to who?
Well, according to their board. Let's.
Yeah. Okay. When you say best player according to DJ. Best player according to Dane Brugler. Best player according to Mel. Yeah, but that's what the fans think. Why are they giving up? Okay, so it's no. They go by their board, and if you've got a bunch of players that are in the same area, you're going to take the best player that fits a need.
Right.
But there's players there's players that they got pinpointed, and we've seen that here that they want, and they're figuring out where they can get them. There's not a doubt in my mind. People said, "Oh, they're going to take a running back in the second round." Not a doubt in my mind. Luther Burden's the guy they wanted.
Yeah, that's right. I'm beginning to believe that just because he's so effing outstanding.
Well, no, you listen to what they say after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
And it's and part of it was, okay, well, we still got to get a running back according to what supposedly the needs were. And they waited all the way till the 7th round. And people say, well, that's because right in front of them, they got the guy got taken. Well, how do you know that guy was liked by the Chicago Bears?
Yeah.
You don't know that, and you're never going to know that. So, you know, it's reality is that if you really wanted a guy, you go up and get him. But when you do your research going into the draft, you got a pretty good idea where you can get a guy, and if you have to make a move to go get him, or you can just sit and wait.
Yeah, in some of those draft videos that the Bears put out, it appears like they use analytics. So there's a 75% chance that Rome Odunze will fall to. So say they do all that kind of work. Greg, about 20, 30 minutes ago, there was a debate going on in the chat room about Khalil Mack. If he was open to return to Chicago on a 1-year deal, and if the the economics worked, would you be interested in bringing Khalil Mack for a season to help the pass rush?
Well, at his age, you don't know when he's going to fall off the cliff.
It could be yesterday.
And Ryan got rid of him for a reason, and part of that was that. And he got, good payment in return.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot see him going out, seeing the moves he's made,
mm-hmm.
bringing in a 35-year-old pass rusher. I just can't see it. It goes against what he's done.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, when Ryan at the press conference says we want to stick with the plan, yeah, the plan is not bringing in 35-year-old pass.
Yeah, I mean that's why I could see a Max Crosby is a little bit younger than Hendrickson,
mm-hmm.
but Max Crosby's going to cost you. Hendrickson's going to cost you just money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so because you'll be a free agent, but then you look at Hendrickson. Hendrickson's missed a lot of time the last few years.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are you going to pay him? Because I'm not paying him to sit on the bench because he's hurt.
Indeed. Ben Johnson, what is your gut feel about what Ben Johnson, the impact that Ben Johnson had on player acquisition last year, and what's your gut feel on what he will have this year? I ask because that's a comment that's being talked about in the chat.
Big Z, and I disagree with Big Z on this. Something like the main personnel guy in the office is Ben Johnson. I disagree with that totally.
I saw that.
And then you hear what Ben had to say, that how closely he and Ryan worked together, and Ryan did this, and this, during the week, and which totally goes against what Brad's assumption was.
Yeah.
And if you know. And you go back to what contracts say,
mm-hmm.
and the guy who now you're not going to get a player that the coach doesn't want.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, you're gonna make an agreement on a player. It's not like you're excluding the coach, and you're gonna try to get the guys that the coach wants. The last thing you can do is get a player the coach doesn't want because you like them. That coach will find a way to make that player fail. So it's just, it's ludicrous to do that. So you try to work together and you find guys that everybody in the room likes, everybody in the decision-making room is on board with.
Yep, absolutely. That's that. And I think the Bears are really good at that. I think, right, if you want to give credit to Ryan Post for anything, I think he's good at getting consensus from the scouting team and coaches, despite what was written about him by Tyler Dunn. So that by the way, that report by Tyler Dunn doesn't look really good nowadays. Right?
What was the guy? I can't think of his name now. Longtime writer up in Milwaukee, was the Green Bay.
Bob McGinn?
Yeah, Bob McGinn. Okay. So I've known Bob a long time. I just couldn't think of the name.
Good
and
guy.
Every year, twice a year, he's come to me where he going to write about the NFC North is all or something like this. And so he never uses my name, but gets my feeling on the Bears. What do they need? Who's good, who's bad, yada, yada, yada. So I get an email from Bob a few weeks ago. Greg, it's that time again. Can you sit down with me? And I sent it back. I said, no. I said, after that, and I know Tyler Dunn. He's a Buffalonian guy. I said, after that hit piece that Tyler wrote on Caleb, I refuse to do anything for going long again.
Wow. Interesting. Do you think that, I want to get to why. Do you think that some of that stuff was fabricated, or do you think it was just there was an intentional purpose for that article, which was to make Ryan Poles and Caleb Williams look bad?
I don't have the answer, but it proved to be totally wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't one bit of truth into it. So you could find, I mean, I got a bunch of negative information, and I said on here, some of that turned out not to be correct.
Right.
Okay. And at the same time, you know, who did Tyler talk to? And everybody he talked to seemed to have a score to settle.
Right. These were all former employees, people who let go.
Like, so, you know, he could get it from that standpoint, and it's not going to be accurate. And it's not the first time he's done it. I mean, he's been famous for writing hit pieces.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's right. Well, I think that's where he gets his money from, writing those hit pieces, and subscribers, you know, subscribe to it and then forget to cancel, like me. All right.
No, I never was a subscriber, but I just, like I say, but I could look up the email, because I one of the things, I guess I'm a hoarder. I keep emails in there for a long time. I could probably pick up the email right now that Bob sent me back. Want me to do that? I'll tell you what he said after I do it. Let me see if I can find this here.
And Bob is a good guy, but I understand your stance on that. He probably, when he responded to you, probably said, I had nothing to do with that. Chris says that article was a load of bollocks. I love it. Swaggy says, I'm writing a piece about Greg Gabriel. Hey, Greg, can I get a list of your enemies, please?
Okay, here's what I wrote to Bob. He sends me the email on January 5th, you know, asking me to do the stuff. I said, Bob, I'm sorry. I just saw this. I didn't see it till like 2 days later.
Okay.
And I said, have to say that after Tyler's hit piece on Caleb this summer, most of which was totally false, there's no way in good conscience that I can do anything to help this site ever again. I apologize. So I get back. I respect you and your decision. Ultimately, it'll limit the evaluations I can obtain on the Bears players, you know, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So, I mean, he was kind of apologetic, but, you know, there was no way after that I was going to help that site.
Yeah, I understand and respect your decision. Absolutely. We got a couple more questions here. We have more than a couple, but I'm going to whittle them down. I love this question from J2K, because tomorrow is the East-West Shrine Bowl game, and give us a couple of prospects we should keep in.
Yeah, I haven't looked. In all honesty, I haven't even had time to look at the tape yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, and who plays in the game versus who practice are two different things.
Right.
What Eric has done is he brings in like 140 players, and a lot of the guys are there to practice, and then they go home.
Right.
And the game's for show.
Yes.
So a lot of the better players, and like last year he had quarterback from Colorado, Shedeur Sanders. And Sanders was there. He didn't even practice. He was there to interview.
Yes.
That was it.
Right.
And actually, I commend Eric for doing that, because he's trying to just get access for the players to talk to teams.
Which is great.
Yeah.
And strategically, they're not going to the Senior Bowl, and they have a friendly competition. I don't even know if it's friendly. They have a competition.
Well, you know, you got a new director of the Senior Bowl now. The guy who was there for, you know, the last 10, 12 years, he left. He's the GM at the University of Oklahoma. So now, you got a new guy there now who I don't know that much about. Yeah, I mean, the game is, you know, it's got a good name. It's going to sell itself on the name. But I do know that Eric has gotten, as far as putting a roster together, has gotten stronger every year. And he's had a bunch of guys getting drafted, like 70% of his players or something have gotten drafted each of the last 2 years. And so, you know, and he thought that this year's roster might have been the best.
Yeah.
On paper. So we'll find that out at the end of April.
The last time I was at the Senior Bowl a few years ago, Jim Nagy told us, all the media people that were there, that Eric was doing a phenomenal job with utilizing social media for content. And And that's absolutely true. Eric has made practice tape available for those of us who like to watch tape. And
all you got to do is get a virtual press pass.
Exactly. So if you're interested in looking at any of that tape, just go to the X account from Eric Galco or the East West Shrine game, and you'll see a link to get that stuff. So, but we will talk about this game, this East West Shrine game, next week on next week's show.
I don't even. I got to record the game because I don't know if I'll watch it tomorrow night. But because personally, All-Star games, the games don't mean it. The teams rarely even watch the tape.
It's the
they
practice.
Watch the tape of the practice.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to see. You want to see the one-on-ones and that type of thing. And then you're there also for the interviews. Because you don't have the time constraint that you have at the combine. You don't necessarily have at an All-Star game. And guys you can get at the All-Star game, you've got it done, and you don't have to get them again at the combine unless it's the guy you want the coaches to talk to.
Right. I'll tell you one thing about last year's Shrine Bowl game. That was my introduction to Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. He scored 2 touchdowns in that game. And, there wasn't any game tape in 2025 because he
didn't play.
Right. Or 2024 because he didn't play. Right. And so that was pretty cool to watch him. And then the Bears chose Monangai over Krosky Merritt, if I recall correctly. And I thought it was a mistake, but it definitely wasn't. Monangai had the better of the two seasons.
Well, I think they were looking for a guy who could complement Swift.
And it was a smart decision. J2K has a follow-up with defensive tackle being a primary need. What traits do you think Dennis Allen might be looking for in a 3-tech or a nose tackle?
He wants, from what I've seen, he wants more size.
He likes Billings. He likes that big fat ass.
Well, yeah, and whether Billings is brought back because he's out of contract remains to be seen. I mean, the guy's value to what his contract is, that's like an all-time contract. He's making $3 million this year. Okay, really underpaid. Somebody's going to probably give him some decent money. I mean, obviously he wants athletes and he wants somebody who can rush the passer, but at the same time, like I'm in this one chat, Swifty's in it on X. There's probably 20 guys in it, and they were talking about, and I just entered a little of it, that Kuiper's mocking he had the Bears taking the Ohio State tackle, who I think is a really good fit for the Bears scheme. Okay, so these guys, they got to jump up and get the kid from Clemson who went like 4 picks earlier in Mel's mock.
Okay.
And I'm like, no, that guy's not the fit that the Ohio State guy is.
Yes. Yeah, I know you're going to try to get Mel on again, which is going to be impossible because
Mel, as long as he's under contract to ESPN, he can't
do a podcast with us. Well,
yeah.
I watch First Draft with him and Field Yates, and sometimes Greenberg is on that, and that's a very informative show. But boy, maybe sometime after he retires, we can have him on the show because we're going to continue to do this for 10 more years, right, Greg?
Yeah, I hope if I stay alive that long.
Same here, brother. Any truth, Greg, to Stevenson? Supposedly he was missing assignments and was the reason why his snaps were heavily reduced. Is it time?
Well, they were reduced in the one game.
Right.
Then he came back and played a lot the next week.
Right. He earned his way back onto the football field.
I first of all, I don't know anything about the rumor, and I'm not going to try to validate a rumor because I don't know the answer. Could it be assignments? Could it be missing a meeting? Could it be whatever? You're going to punish the player. I mean, personally, I think when you have a player that has value on the field, when you have him miss a game, you're hurting your team. Okay, so I'd rather, this is my own philosophy, is get him in the pocketbook. But sometimes these guys are making so much money that the pocketbook doesn't have the effect of missing a game.
Yeah,
So I get that.
absolutely. A personal question here from Vizzo to me. He says, Aldo, will you be going on hiatus for the offseason, or will you continue to do weekly shows? Here's my schedule, Vizzo. The only show I'm going to do for the next 2 months is this show. All of the work that I do at night, I'm going to stop doing it. I'm going to go on hiatus. Bare Their Souls will continue without me. Because of my rehab schedule, I need to get sleep. I can't do 6 hours of sleep and then go to rehab the next day. So I'm taking time off. This show is perfectly timed. We do it in the mornings. We'll go back to the 11 o'clock schedule, whatever Greg wants to do, but it's a daytime show. I can get my rest and go to rehab.
Well, you had an appointment today you got to get to, right?
Exactly. I got a doctor's appointment later today. So, and Greg is always very accommodating when we want to change the start time for this show. But the headline is I will only be devoting my time and resources to this show, and we're going to Greg and I are going to do a great job of giving you scouting reports, interviews. Greg's got some calls into some really awesome people, just like today.
I'm sure we'll get Dane back, and then I just want to make sure I get the name right. And he's already said he will come on.
Oh yeah, you sent me a text for somebody who's already agreed to come on. Yeah, Mike Renner, exactly.
Who was originally with PFF and now he's with CBS, Notre Dame grad, and he did some work with us for the East-West game and did a really good job. I was actually really impressed with the stuff he did, because we'd have these like Zoom meetings to go over players, and he did an excellent job.
Ooh, cool. All right, looking forward to that. Let's see, what else did I want to share? By the way, Buffon 55, their season finale is tomorrow night at 8. They'll review the season, and John Buffon, his veins will be sticking out of his neck just like his uncle, Doug Buffon, so he'll have some hot takes for everybody. Greg, you want to take a couple more questions, or should we get out of here?
Well, we get to one or two more.
Okay, let's go with, this is an easy one. This is a softball. Michael says, don't you feel Pose has earned our trust at this point? He has mine.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, he is a serious candidate for executive of the year, don't you think?
And Schneider might get it, just the fact that Seattle's in the Super Bowl or something like that. But yeah, he's a serious candidate. Important thing is that, the gun wasn't to his head like it was the first time when he hired Flus. That's the guy you will hire. Even though they'll never officially say that. He got it right. And, like I said with Rick earlier, not only was it the right guy, but the staff he put together, which tells you a lot about Ben Johnson. That staff was amazingly good.
Yeah, indeed. Foster, what's your latest thinking on the Bears going to Indiana?
I think that it's right now, based on what Indiana is offering, it might be better than 50-50 that they're right on the other side of the border.
Yeah. Do you care?
No.
Yeah, I mean, you and I don't go to games much.
I would have gone if I lived that long before they get that damn stadium built.
Yeah.
I would have gone, down the street from you.
Right.
I mean, I've taken that. I know about where they want to build it, and every time I go home to Buffalo and I'm driving, I go over the Skyway, and so I've gone right by that area. From downtown, it's 15 minutes. It's like the people in New York got to go, cross the river and go into the Hudson River and go into Jersey to go see the Giants or the Jets.
Now, Brad Biggs, in that latest column that I read, he said it would be kind of ridiculous for them to move to Hammond because he thinks that's the most likely site, Hammond, Indiana. He says that's 66 miles from Lake Forest. And so I don't see the Bears wanting to make a 66-mile commute for their home games.
Well, they go to, like right now,
Mm-hmm.
they're at a hotel downtown. They've been to the same hotel forever.
That's right.
Pregame, and yes. And, would they find another one? Actually, the Hilton to Hammond, 20 minutes. It's not as close as Soldier Field, but it's 20
they'd
minutes.
be leaving early in the morning, so no traffic. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I think Kevin has done the right thing, putting the gun to the head of the politicians in Illinois, who, no matter what, can never make a good decision, regardless. I mean, it's just every decision they make is horrible. So I think they need that. They need that because all these guys want to do one thing: get reelected. And they lose that team, they ain't getting reelected. It's real simple.
It's over. Your political career is over if the Bears move. Yes, and so that's why I think the Bears will, the state of Illinois will capitulate to the Bears' demands. There's no way they're going to allow the Bears to get out of here. Cook County likes to play hardball. Yeah, they like to waste our tax dollars too. So
look at I've been living here 25 years now. God darn, the money they waste in this state is crazy.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. All right. Let me see if I got another good one to close the show on. Let's see as I go down. Okay. Here's one. Bear and Bruce. Greg, which team realistically looks like a real threat to take the North from us as of right now? We know we've got to go through free agents, the draft, and so forth. But is there a team right now that concerns you?
No.
Yeah, I don't get that sense either, right?
No, and I look at Green Bay took a step back with losing their coordinator and who they hired. Now Gannon did a good job in Philly.
Yeah, but he's a weird guy.
I don't know much about him, but he got a head coaching position because of the job he had in Philly. But he also had a lot better players than Green Bay has. There's always got Parsons. Well, Parsons is one guy. Detroit, where'd they come up with this guy from Arizona to be the OC?
I don't know.
It's
kind of laughable.
Yeah, but hey, we'll see. I think if Minnesota gets a legitimate quarterback, and I hope their young guy can turn it on. He actually played in their last game. He played pretty good. His problem has been injuries.
Yep.
And if he can stay healthy, he's got a chance. But we'll see. It's a good division. It's not going to be a pushover. But I think that we're just, and Rick said it too. It's not just that the Bears are going to keep getting better, it's that Caleb's going to get a lot better. Yep. You haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah, it does appear that
how
way.
Good that guy's going to be.
Yeah. One of the things that Ben Johnson said in his press conference last week was that they were going to work really hard on catching the football.
Yep.
So my question to you is, Rome Odunze, where's your confidence level that he's going to do a much better job of catching the football? Because
I put that on the fact that he was playing hurt. And how long before they sat his ass down was he hurt? When did he really do that?
Yeah, that's a great point, Greg. Because I think he played 3 or 4 games with
that's painful type injury.
Mm-hmm.
And people want to write him off, whatever. I take that with a grain of salt. I could care less what a lot of the people think. He's not going anywhere. personally, I don't think DJ's going anywhere, but, could it happen? Yeah, sure it could. But I just think that when you look at all the good that he's done, his value, not only as a player, because, go back, you get rid of DJ, you got to replace him. There's nobody on this roster right now that can replace him. You'd say, well, Burden. No, Burden's already got his job.
Yeah.
And OZ's out of contract.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to have that, Rome is the X and DJ's the Z. You got to have another Z.
Yep. What do you think of Jade Walker and his future with the Bears?
Well, he's going to be better next year than he is than he was this year. He was Texas A&M's leading receiver in 24, but it was only like 39 catches.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, athletically, he's really good. He's a hell of an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Does he have that ability to go to the next level, take the next step? I don't know enough about him. I don't know the guy personally to know what works up here with him, to do that. I know he's talented. And when he needed to make a big play, he made the play.
Mm-hmm.
So, but to say he can replace DJ, I can't say that. I can't say that with any confidence, put it that way.
I hear you. Tony Moya wants to know your thoughts on Mike McCarthy going to the Steelers to be their head coach.
It's the Steelers, so what? I mean, he's a local guy.
I think it's a terrible move, Greg.
I don't know. The guy who kind of praised it yesterday was Cower.
Well, it's old school, old school coach praising an old school coach.
If it doesn't work, the people who made the hires are going to lose their job over it.
The general manager.
But, go back to what Rick and I were talking about. The pool this year wasn't very good.
I mean, the Steelers should have waited for Clint Kubiak to at least do a thorough interview with him. Get a young
but
don't you think?
How do you know he's doing a good job and he comes from a coaching family. I mean,
yes.
That's a plus. His dad was a coach. His brother's a coach. His dad was a head coach and a well-respected head coach. But that doesn't mean he's Ben Johnson.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And part of this is in what people don't understand. It's the staff you put together.
Absolutely.
And the leadership. I said, complaining about the Buffalo thing. I go, it's not about the X's and O's for the head coach. It's about the leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Remember we right after Ben got hired, that's the one thing you didn't know. How good is he in that area? Well, it proved out to be outstanding, but you didn't know for sure. The one thing about Sean McDermott's got some faults, there's no question.
Mm-hmm.
But there ain't anybody in this pool that's going to carry his jockstrap this year.
Yeah.
And he is a great leader and highly respected by his players. His players are pissed.
Mm-hmm. Very pissed.
Yeah. And that's gonna have a big effect on that team.
Have you
the
heard?
Only thing they got going is Josh Allen.
Yeah. Have you heard anything about Ian Cunningham and going to Atlanta?
No. But I would think that's going to be done this week, one way or the other.
Yeah.
They've done about half a dozen interviews.
Yeah. I mean, those guys should be down at the Shrine Bowl game. Should have been. And down
theoretically they were. Okay, and then but doing it for the teams they work for, not right. But they still got that info.
Sure thing. I was surprised that Brad Biggs wrote in his Q&A column that it looks like the Bears won't get comp picks Because as you said,
I
we
don't
we
agree with that. It
No.
depends. It's first of all, they could have denied, and I could be totally wrong, but it's really what's in the contract. And it could have been that Matt Ryan had control over hiring the coach, but the GM might get the 53. And if he gets the 53, they're getting the comp picks.
Yeah.
There's no question about it.
Yeah. I think that the backlash that the NFL would get if they don't award the Bears those comp picks if Cunningham is hired.
Well, they could have turned down the interview if they knew for sure that they weren't getting anything. They could have said, "Well, you aren't talking to him then."
Yep, indeed. J2K says slippery slope if the NFL lets teams create titles that remove comp picks. Totally agree, J2K. Totally agree. It is going to be interesting to watch, and Greg and I will be monitoring that. We're scheduled to be back here next Monday at our regular time. If anything big happens, I'll call Greg and see if we want to hop in before that. But again, this show will continue throughout the off season. We'll probably take, those few weeks before training camp off, or a couple of weeks at least. And the rest of the shows on the network will continue, with the exception of Buffon 55. Their season finale is tomorrow. Bare Their Souls Without Me will continue on Wednesday. So there you have it, Greg. Any final words for your fans?
No, it's I'm not excited about the Super Bowl. Like I said, boring.
But you've got plenty of tape to watch. So
no, I got to start, because I've already started. I've been working actually on 27 for the last month. The players I'm doing, and I got to start. I only do. I've done over 400, actually closer to 500 for this draft. But it's the guys I've been asked to do, not necessarily need positions. So I got to go back and do some of those guys.
Now, I got a question. Those guys that you're doing for agents, you're scouting players for agents, do they want you to talk about those players on your show?
Well, no, they want it so they know who they're recruiting. Is he a guy that, certain agents want, I only want top 100 guys. If he's not a top 100 guy, I'm not interested. So they want to know if he's a potential top, and there's other guys that, they go, well, if he's going to go in the first 6 rounds or something like that, if he's a free agent, I don't want him.
Gotcha.
Because I can't make any money.
Right. My point is, another agent watching this show who's not paying for your services, he hears, well, Greg thinks this is the top 10 guy, and would the guy that's paying you say, Greg, you can't do this to me. Now I got competition with this other agent.
No, because number one, he'd already have the guy. Anybody they're going to have signed for this year is pretty much signed.
Gotcha. So,
that's why I'm more,
working on 27. Gotcha.
Yeah. And now with NIL, they're getting guys as underclassmen now. I can't tell you how many freshmen and sophomores I've done that aren't even, involved in. They want the earliest they'll be in the draft is the 28 draft or whatever, and it's like, because they're making money on the NIL, because they, right now you go to college, the way this thing is turned into, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm going there this year, but then if I don't like it, I'm going somewhere else next year and somewhere else. It's like college free agency year after year after year.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how there's been a ton of guys that I've done that next year, so this 26 season will be the 4th school they've been to.
Jeez. You're gonna start doing high school players pretty soon, Greg.
No, I'll never do a high school. First of all, you can't get reliable tape, and number two, they're not fully developed.
Yeah, but Yeah, I've heard some stories that agents have, they see a headline about high school player scores 14 touchdowns in one game.
I know one agent, and I don't work with them, but I know one agent who does that. Guys who are like potential 5 stars.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because really, theoretically, a high school kid can get NIL money. Wow. The courts have opened that up. So, I mean,
crazy times we live in.
I know.
All right, Greg, great show. We're getting lots of accolades for today's show. I know a lot of people are just tuning in now.
We did a full 2 hours. That's 2 weeks.
That's right. 2 hours. So the show is up on YouTube, and it will be up on audio podcast in about 30, 40 minutes. So thank you all, and a special thanks to Lutz, the reporter, and let me see, what's his name? I forgot what his name is for the donation. Will Wall, who bought a super sticker. Thank you very much, and all of you who are watching, whether live or recording, thank you all for watching. For Gabriel, I'm Aldo Gandia. We'll see you next week.
See you later. Thanks, people.